Gentlemen,
Sounds good.
welcome to the Go Local Live studio.
I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Kind of eyes on the world.
It's a great location,
It is
no question about it.
And we know you're close by, and we know you are everywhere these days.
It sometimes seems like that, yes.
Sometimes seems like that when I try to get a hold of you, and there's a number of issues I want to talk about. And first and foremost, I want to talk with you about UHIP and specifically the ACLU's lawsuit pertaining to delivery or lack thereof of food stamps. So
Yes.
walk me through the impetus behind that and where we find ourselves right now.
Sure. Well, shortly after UHIP launched, problems became pretty clear right away. And we started receiving complaints on a sporadic basis from individuals who were having trouble getting their SNAP benefits. We heard from the state, they realized there were problems, they were working on them. So we kept on holding off on considering doing anything. And finally it got to a point a couple months in, I think early December, where our legal committee sat down and said, this is not getting any better, we need to do something about it. And that's when we decided to put a lawsuit together. We decided to focus first specifically on SNAP benefits. As you know, the other programs are also in disarray. But this is one where federal law is very clear. It says that when a state participates in the SNAP program, individuals are entitled to benefits in a certain time period.
Okay. 30
days to process, 7 days for expedited situations where people are in dire need, and it simply wasn't happening. So we did file a suit at the end of December challenging the delays. We've been working in the case ever since. We've been trying to reach a settlement with the state. We're hopeful that we'll be able to do so sometime fairly soon. But at the same time, we are also now looking at the other complaints we're getting about other aspects of the UHIP program to see if things need to be addressed there as well. I mean, it is an incredible mess. I think the report that was issued this week documented just how messy it is. Unfortunately, it's going to take more than a lawsuit to ultimately resolve it, but we're hopeful that what we've done is moving the ball faster, and what we've been doing is at least helping people on an individual basis when they contact us and moving their case along.
So talk to us a little bit about that, and I want to go back to the settlement after, but what have you seen? So folks have said, I'm not getting based on the system, I'm not getting my benefits.
Yeah.
What do they do in that case? Do you have to refer them to other social service agencies? Is it coming later? What's, for the person who comes to you and says, this is the hardship that I'm finding, what are you hearing from folks?
We're hearing a little bit of everything. I mean, the system is messed up in lots of different ways. I mean, what often happens is they go, they apply, they don't get anything. When they come back, the service workers can't find the application. It just doesn't appear anywhere. Their benefits that they're told are going to come don't come. It really is a little bit of everything. The complaints from the social workers themselves about glitches in the system cover the whole gamut of problems. I mean, sometimes I think you couldn't have deliberately come up with a system that created more problems than it actually has. So we do have an informal process where if an individual, especially new applicants, when their application is delayed, the state has agreed to put those to the top of the agenda, take care of them quickly, and that's been working fairly well. But obviously there's still thousands of other people running into problems. We've been trying to deal with them as best as we can, but ultimately it's going to take a resolution of the lawsuit and a lot of other work by the state to really ultimately address all these problems.
So what happens to that person or that family who anticipated that they were going to get, let's say back in December, they thought that they were going to get $40 a week to assist them with food and basic necessities. If they didn't get that $40 then, or if it's been delayed, what happens to the money that they were is that part of the settlement? I think folks are really asking if they were supposed to have gotten the money. Yeah. When will they see that money? When will they see that money? And that's what folks really want to know about.
Sure. Well, if they've lost money, they haven't gotten money that they are otherwise entitled to under the law, what they can do is they can file an appeal notice with the state. And if they're successful in the appeal, then they should be entitled under most circumstances to the money that they ended up not getting that they were entitled to. But they do have to go through a process and hopefully they will get it. I think the bigger question that you're asking is, what are people doing in the meantime when they aren't getting the money, the benefits they need in order to survive, and different things. But it's certainly the food banks and other places have really felt the brunt of this. I mean, people are, they really are desperate sometimes. They are going to food banks, they're doing things, borrowing food or money from friends, family, relatives. People are coming up with their own ways to try to address the problems that the UHIP system is causing them.
Do you think Rhode Islanders have a sense of food shortage issues here for some of the Rhode Islanders most in need?
I think that's true across the country. I'm not sure there's anything special about Rhode Island. There is a need for, there are people living at the basic level of, if not of survival, but of just getting by. And there definitely needs to be much more done for people who are at that level.
And I do want to circle back to something you had said earlier. You took the legal action pertaining to the SNAP benefits, but you said there's other issues under the UHIP umbrella that you're eyeing. Could you be potentially taking more legal action in those arenas?
We are looking into that, yes.
Okay.
It's a matter of resources and, how successful can be. We are litigating in other areas.
Okay, well, we'll continue to keep an eye on the UHIP and the SNAP lawsuit that the Rhode Island ACLU has filed against the state. I do want to tack to another issue that you had brought to the press's and public's attention, and let's go federal. It was specifically looking at Trump's proposed immigration policies. And what was it? You wanted to put together kind of a toolkit, like ways that communities can address what might be forthcoming, sort of boil it down a little bit. What does that look like?
Sure. So as a result of the president's executive orders, there's lots of fear in the community about what's going to happen. We've seen a little bit of it with the Muslim ban. The president has indicated he's working on other executive orders dealing with immigration. And I think the thing to understand is, well, he may be able to issue some executive orders on this issue, assuming he does them in a constitutional manner, which so far he hasn't done very well. But assuming he does, a lot of the things he might propose are not necessarily things that the state or municipalities have to follow through on. And I'll give one very good example because the timing was really great. We filed a lawsuit 3 years ago on behalf of a woman, a naturalized citizen from Guatemala, who has twice been picked up by immigration agents and held at the ACI because they thought she might be here illegally. They were wrong. They have a very sloppy process for holding people. They issue what are known as detainers, and these are just documents that they give to a police department or often the Department of Corrections saying, we know you're holding, we know you have control of this person. We want you to hold them for a certain period of time while we check to see whether they are deportable. And these detainers are just issued by bureaucratic agents. We found out from our lawsuit on behalf of this woman that sometimes they don't do the barest of investigation to try to at least initially determine, are there really sufficient grounds to hold this person? In this woman's case, Ada Morales, what they did was they essentially relied on the fact that a sheet that was filled out by the Department of Corrections officials indicated she was born in Guatemala, and then for some bureaucratic reason they left blank the check mark on whether she was a citizen. It was just left blank. So based on that, based on the fact that her name was Morales, some bureaucrat decided the Department of Corrections should hold her overnight. She was subjected to a strip search, and she claims she was harassed by guards. And she was let go a day later when finally ICE officials looked more closely and realized she was a citizen. The president, one of the aspects of the president's executive order is to encourage the states and local police departments to comply with those detainers. Anytime they get one of these civil detainers, the president wants to force police to actually enforce them. In this lawsuit that we filed, the judge found that it was unconstitutional to do that, that these detainers were holding people based on something that was less than probable cause. And under our Constitution, you need probable cause before you can lock somebody up overnight or for 5 years or 10 years or whenever. And these detainers don't meet that standard. So it's sort of troubling to have a presidential executive order telling state and police agencies enforce these, when all what we'll do is make them liable for damages for violating people's constitutional rights. So one thing that municipalities can do and that the state can do is adopt policies or an ordinance, which is something we're putting together, that says we are not going to comply with these types of detainers. If you have a judicial order with it, if a court has said, pick this person up, we'll do it. But if it's just some bureaucrat signing a piece of paper, we're going to decide on our own not to do it because we don't want to be held liable for violating anybody's constitutional rights.
Now, did Ms. Morales get damages in that case?
Well, so what happened is I guess it was last week, the judge ruled that the federal agents who were involved in this were liable under the Constitution for violating her rights. So the next step will be a trial to determine what damages she's entitled to.
So would you foresee this, do you think lawmakers and authorities here know this? Do you think you've made the case for the difference between sort of civil detainers and, I'm probably not using the right language
here.
That is, yeah. and then the ones that are the judicial ones. Do you think that there's that sense here, and do you think that they know that, so say someone had gotten one of the civil detainers, what's the process? Do they reach out to the ACLU? Do they try to get pro bono legal help to be able to address the issue? What are you hearing from folks who are concerned about this?
I think different municipalities have different policies, and so one of the ideas is to make all municipalities aware of what limits there are, and instead of just making them policies that can be changed in a day, to actually adopt them into ordinances so they're firm, people know what can and can't be done. I think that will provide protections in a much more foundational basis than just relying on informal policies, which some police departments do, and they're all over the map. And we think that the court decision, when tied to the efforts that the president is making, give impetus to municipalities to adopt clear standards as they will and won't do.
Basis.
Right.
We see something introduced in a province, introduced in Chris.
The plan is to, once the package is done, we hope to distribute it to all the municipalities. What's going on is we've heard from advocates, community advocates in a number of different locations across the state that want their city or town councils to take action, to provide some protection to people in their communities. So we'll also be giving this package to those advocates as well, and we're hopeful that between the advocates and between sympathetic local officials, we'll see some action, at least some communities across the state trying to address this issue, sort of staying ahead of whatever the president has in mind in terms of trying to turn every city and state agency into immigration officials.
So we can possibly expect to see something before the Providence City Council within the near future. Have you talked with council members about this?
Not yet, no.
When do we expect the full package to be released
We're
from
hoping,
the ACLU?
We're hoping the full package will be done within the next week or two.
Excellent. Well, I know that you had announced this a couple weeks ago that
Yep.
this was forthcoming.
Yep.
When you say a package, I mean, how big and overarching? I mean, what can I expect from the press standpoint to be getting from the Rhode Island ACLU?
Well, I think the issue I mentioned is probably the biggest one, the whole, addressing the detainer issue. But we are looking at some other smaller things that cities and towns might be able to do. I'm not prepared yet to say what they are, but we want to give.
Can't get it out yet.
No, but we want to give both the advocates and municipalities some options. If they're concerned about doing too much, at least adopt some basic measures that will help protect everybody, protect them from the president really come down hard on trying to force cities and states to do the immigration agency's bidding.
As I said, we want to talk with these important issues and more moving forward. But before we let you go here, at the General Assembly, what else is on your list? We've got recess next week, so you can take a deep breath.
Thank goodness.
Recharge the batteries.
Yes, 1 week of calm before the storm.
So what else is on the hit list for the session?
Well, it's still sort of early to tell because most bills have not yet been introduced. We'll see them introduced in the next week. So some of the biggest challenges we don't even know about yet.
Yeah.
But there are some good things that have already been pushed. Probably the biggest one is the Justice Reinvestment Package that a lot of stakeholders got together last year, came up with 6 bills designed to promote criminal justice reform in the state, something that's occurring in states across the country. It's not only good policy, but it's fiscally very important. Too much money is being spent on housing people at the ACI, and these criminal justice reforms at least take some small steps towards addressing those issues. The Senate has already passed the package. We're hoping, it got hung up on politics last year, but we're hoping that both the House and the Senate this year will take it up early and get it passed. And I think it would be a really important step.
No, I know that's a big goal of yours, and as you said, it happened in the waning hours of last session, and I know folks are really shining the light on it. They want the sunshine right now.
Yes.
We talked with Mike Stenhouse with the Rhode Island Center for Freedom and Prosperity, and he and Ray Rickman were out talking about it. I think there's a lot of attention, especially because, as you said, it passed the Senate, did not pass the House. We will be keeping a close eye on that. So Steve Brown, appreciate your coming in today and talking with us live in our new studio here at 90 Way Bosset. And we look forward to talking with you soon, perhaps once the package is introduced, and I'm sure people will be talking all about it. So I appreciate your coming in today.
You know how to find me.
I do, okay.